Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Agricultural education takes many forms. It could be a pick-your-own orchard, a fly fishing trip, or a romantic sleigh ride. All these activities fall under the heading of agritourism. According to the most recent statistics from the USDA in 2017, agritourism brought an estimated $51.7 million to Vermont. Our focus today is on the expectations of this growing industry. What should visitors expect when they visit a farm? And what should farmers think about when they invite people onto their land? We begin in Randolph. That's where Keith Silva went to learn about a traditional home for nomads that's become the place to stay in central Vermont.
Jen Colby has held many jobs in Vermont agriculture, from working for UVM Extension as a pasture specialist to raising sheep and pigs on her own farm. A few years ago, when she and her family moved to this farm, in Randolph, she knew it was the right time and place to assume a new role in Vermont's working landscape.
I got into raising meat animals because we were meat eaters and wanted to be responsible about it, which eventually led into a competitive barbecue experience for 12, 13 years. Taking meat and preparing it in a loving and competent way was really important to us. And through that, we did a lot of hospitality too. We just did meals, we did events, we hosted people, we cooked for people, we cooked for friends and family. And so having a background where we hosted people, it just seemed like the next natural step would be to host people overnight.
What Colby cooked up next was how to have guests stay overnight. So she and her family built a yurt.
It's a round tent. It's actually designed to be portable. I'm not planning to move it anywhere, but they're structured, they're based on the Mongolian gur tent. This one's insulated. They hold in their heat. They create this beautiful round space. There's something really wonderful and comfortable in them. When we bought this farm, we knew we wanted to have guests. We knew we wanted to share this farm with other people, and we wanted to share farming in general, but also just a place for people to relax and be away and reconnect with themselves. And so we walked around the farm, we got to this spot, and we said, this is it. This is totally it. And we've had so much great feedback from people that have stayed with us that this is just a wonderful space.
For $130 a night, you and up to 5 guests can stay in the yurt any time of year and experience farm life. Or not.
To be able to help people better understand where food comes from in a very low-key way. They can choose to engage or not. They can come out and move the sheep with me in the morning. They can visit the lambs. They can completely not interact with me. They can go for walks. Really, whatever level people want from this space, they can have, they can get, and they can create it themselves. And I love that. I love that sort of lower-key kind of farm stay agritourism where I'm not doing overt programming. We're not doing, at 1 o'clock we do the tour of this, and at 2 o'clock we do the tour of that. That wasn't what I had in my head. It was really it's a choose your own adventure.
The term agritourism was coined in the 1970s. What started as a trend in Europe when agriturismos began frequenting farms and staying in historic castles has been widely adopted to cover any on-farm experience, from stopping by a roadside stand to overnight stays. Farmers like Colby serve to meet guests where they're at in terms of what they want to do. There are other residents on a farm whose agendas differ with this guest-first philosophy.
Last fall, I had to warn one of my guests that we were going to be weaning the lambs. And I said, by the time you come, I think they'll be pretty quiet. But the first couple of nights, they are like teenagers who don't realize that they can be independent, but they can be independent. So, I just want to warn you of that. And she said, oh, I've had teenagers. It's no problem. But it's sort of that interaction that, this is lambing time. Most of the time that goes well. We lamb out on pasture now. Folks might see a brand new lamb. They might see a situation where it hasn't gone well. And I tried to give folks a heads up about that.
This kind of honesty is part of agritourism. Colby wants to be upfront with guests as well as fellow farmers who might like to become hosts.
Don't sugarcoat your descriptions. I mean, don't make it sound dire either. We have life and death on a daily basis. I don't mean that, but be realistic that this is a working farm, and and you never know what you might see on a daily basis. There might be an escape of animals, which could be very entertaining for guests, a little less entertaining for the farmer. But those kinds of things, for people to understand that we move the animals every day. You might see them. They might be right near you. You might not see them. They might be completely elsewhere. Just to recognize that every single day on a working farm is going to be a little bit different. And not everybody is into a composting toilet, but for folks who were happy it wasn't an outhouse, they're very happy.
The pros and cons of the composting toilet aside, Colby recognizes not all farmers are cut out for the agritourism business.
Lots of folks get into farming because they don't want to interface with people. They like animals, or they like growing things, and they don't necessarily want to interface with human beings. To be successful at it, it requires somebody who wants to host.
Colby hosted her first visitor a little over a year ago. She advertises with the online vacation rental site Airbnb. Like farming, experience has been a great teacher.
Think about what's going to set you up well with Airbnb, because people live and die on those reviews, and it is a fantastic investment to make sure you have an excellent welcome basket, to make sure that everything is clean, that you pre-test with friends and family and other guests of different kinds, so that they can tell you what you're missing before you open it up to the public. Because I feel like we've really benefited from having done that. It was the recommendation, and we started with a lower price to get some really great feedback from folks as well, and that's been really excellent for us. We've come to realize it's about connecting the world. It's not just about this little yurt in the middle of Randolph.
Looking out over the valley, it's easy to see why this would be a nice place to stay, even if it's only for a night or two. In Randolph, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
So fun. Thanks to Jen for putting us up at Howling Wolf Farm for a few hours. And joining us now is Lisa Chase. Lisa is the director of the Vermont Tourism Research Center and the Natural Resources Specialist with UVM Extension. Good afternoon, Lisa, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So a yurt isn't quite the same thing as a room at the Ritz. Where does hospitality, that industry, stop and the farm start, or vice versa in terms of agritourism?
That's a really important question, Fran, and it's a question that is surprisingly controversial at times. The core of agritourism, where there's widespread agreement, is experiences and product sales that are deeply connected to agriculture and that take place on a working farm. Once we get outside the core, into the peripheral tiers, these experiences are sometimes considered agritourism and sometimes not, depending on the definition in a particular context. But farm stays like Jen's, where guests stay on the farm and learn and immerse themselves in agriculture, that's core to agritourism.
Okay, awesome. And Jen Colby also talked about in the video that ratings and reviews are the ultimate indicators for tourists these days. As a researcher, what would you tell a visitor who was thinking of doing an on-farm stay to make sure that they have a very positive experience?
Yeah, I mean, the key point and the reason to do agritourism is because you are on a working farm. That opens up rich possibilities for learning and spending time with animals, harvesting fresh fruits and vegetables. But it also means that this experience, it's not only about the visitors. It's not Disney World or another attraction that was created specifically for the pleasure of tourists. For example, this time of year, as Jen mentioned, you might see animals being born, which
How
is
great
so
is that?
exciting, and that's why you go. But it doesn't always go smoothly. So it's an incredible experience and can be an unpredictable adventure, which is part of the appeal. But it's not scripted, and visitors need to be ready for the unexpected.
Sure. And what is the impact of online vacation rental companies like Airbnb have on agritourism in terms of accessibility and assessment?
Short-term rentals like Airbnb have made it easier for farms to have overnight guests. But there's a little bit of friction between the short-term rentals and the traditional B&Bs and inns that go through a permitting process with the state of Vermont. Those B&Bs and inns approved by the state of Vermont are held to a higher standard than Airbnb listings, and guests should be aware of that.
So, you know, you have hold a conference. You're going to hold it in 2020. You've had to postpone it twice. But in the meantime, you are doing these webinars on agritourism gatherings from all over the world. They're virtual farm series for farm, food, and travel communities. And you've hosted many, many topics. What surprised you about talking with farmers all over the world about agritourism?
One big surprise for me was how widespread the interest in agritourism is all around the globe. I mean, we hear a lot about agritourism in Vermont and other states in the US, and there's Agriturismo in Italy and France and Ireland. But it's been really exciting to see that our webinar series has reached over 70 different countries. We're learning how important agritourism is for farm viability and rural vitality, not just in the US and Europe, but Africa, Asia, Latin America, all over the globe. People are excited about agritourism.
And you right now are in preparation for UVM playing host to this international group. The International Agritourism Conference is happening in August. You can learn more about it by going to agritourismworkshop.com. You can register there as well and see past webinars. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this exciting conference that we hope more people will sign up for, and about this wonderful agritourism industry, really.
Thanks so much for having us.
And once again, thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.